So, just when you think the smartphone market is absolutely crammed full, Samsung decides, let's add another one.
Yeah.
This time it's the Galaxy F56.
Right.
And the thing that immediately grabs you, honestly, how thin it is. Just 7.2 millimeters.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, isn't it? Samsung's strategy here. Just this constant stream of options.
So many.
And the F series, well, it often seems pretty closely related to the M series,
Yeah, they feel like cousins or something.
Exactly. And this F56, it showed up pretty soon after the M56, which, what was that, mid-April?
That sounds right. April 2025.
So it definitely makes you wonder, like, what's the specific angle for each series?
Exactly. So for you listening right now, the big question we're kind of digging into today is, with all these Samsungs out there, does this F56 actually offer something, genuinely different?
Is it a real contender or maybe just filling a tiny gap?
Right. Is it worth paying attention to? So we've gone through the info from places like GS Marina and BT Beer Tie.
Yeah.
Our mission here is basically to unpack the key stuff, the specs, the features, and figure out where this F56 might fit in without, drowning in tech jargon.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay, so let's start with the look and feel, the design and build. That thinness is really the headline, isn't it?
Absolutely. 7.2 millimeters. That actually makes it the thinnest F-series phone they've done.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, just as thin as the M56, so very sleek. Beyond that, though, you've got a pretty standard 6.7-inch OLED display.
Okay.
Good size. It's got 1080p plus resolution, which is sharp enough, and that nice, smooth 120 hertz refresh rate.
That 120 hertz makes a difference for scrolling, definitely. And protection.
Good news there. It's Gorilla Glass Victus Plus on both the front and the back.
Oh, nice. So pretty tough against scratches and hopefully minor drops.
Should be, yeah. And that screen, it can get really bright, apparently. 1200 nits peak brightness in its high brightness mode.
Which is great for, trying to see your screen when you're outside on a sunny day. It's always a struggle sometimes.
Definitely helps. Now, the build itself is interesting. It's a plastic frame.
Okay, so maybe lighter, cost saving.
Probably both. But the camera housing, the island on the back, that part's metal.
So a bit of a premium touch where you might notice it more.
Could be, yeah. Balances cost and feel, perhaps.
All right, let's peek into the hood. What's actually running this thing? It's using an Exynos chip, right?
Yep, the Exynos 1480. It's being called a previous gen chipset.
Okay, previous gen. What does that really mean performance-wise? BT Beer Tie had some details.
Yeah, they mentioned it's an 8-core CPU, and the top cores can hit 2.75 gigahertz. So, even if it's not the absolute latest...
It still sounds reasonably powerful.
I'd think so. Especially when you pair it with the RAM. It comes with 8 gigs of LPDDR5.
LPDDR5X, that's the faster kind.
Yeah, exactly. Faster memory helps with, smoother multitasking, opening apps quicker, should handle daily stuff easily, maybe even some decent gaming.
And storage options.
2 choices, 128 GB or 256 GB. Pretty standard options there.
Okay, but here's something that kind of caught my eye. They mentioned a flagship-level vapor chamber for cooling. Now that sounds premium.
It does, doesn't it? You don't always see that kind of cooling in, let's say, a non-flagship phone.
So why include it? What's the benefit for the user?
Well, a good cooling system, like a vapor chamber, basically helps the phone maintain its performance for longer, especially under load. Think gaming sessions or maybe running intensive apps.
Right, it stops the phone from getting too hot and then slowing down, throttling itself.
Exactly. So it suggests maybe Samsung wants this phone to handle sustained tasks better than some competitors. It's a potentially significant perk.
Interesting angle. And software-wise, it's launching bang up to date.
Yep, comes with One UI 7 right out of the box, which is built on Android 15, so you get all the latest Android features from day one.
That's good. But the really big software news here, the thing that jumps out.
Oh, yeah. The updates.
6 major OS updates, is that right? 6?
That's what they're promising. 6 full Android version updates. That is, honestly, that's huge.
It really is. Especially for a phone likely in the mid-range category. That kind of long-term support is usually reserved for, the top-tier phones or Pixels.
It massively extends the useful lifespan of the phone. You could potentially use this device for 6, maybe 7 years and still be getting major software features. That's a major selling point.
Absolutely. It changes the whole value calculation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about the specs today, but how usable it stays. Okay, let's switch gears to the cameras. What are we looking at?
Main camera on the back is a 50-megapixel sensor, and importantly, it has OIS, optical image stabilization.
Okay, remind us quickly, why is OIS a good thing for you, the listener?
Sure. OIS physically moves the lens or sensor to counteract your hand shaking, so you get sharper photos, especially when the light isn't great, and much smoother, less jittery videos.
Makes sense. And video capabilities.
It can shoot 4K video at 30 frames per second, and interestingly, it supports 10-bit HDR video.
10-bit HDR. What does that give you?
Basically, a wider range of colors and better detail in both the really bright parts and the really dark parts of your video simultaneously. Makes the video look more dynamic, more lifelike.
Nice. Any special modes? Portraits?
Yep, it's got something called Portrait 2.0 mode, and it includes a 2x zoom option specifically for portraits. Gives you a bit more flexibility for framing people.
Okay. But the buzzword now is AI, right? Does it have any Galaxy AI features trickling down?
It does. They specifically mention Object Eraser.
Ah, the magic remove stuff from photos tool.
Exactly. And also Edit Suggestion, where the phone intelligently suggests ways to improve your pictures.
So some of those flagship AI features are making their way down. That's pretty cool.
It is. It adds value beyond just the basic camera hardware. Oh, and the front camera for selfies and video calls is 12 megapixels.
Got it. All right. Keeping everything running. The battery.
Standard large size these days. 5,000 milliliter capacity.
Should be good for all-day use for most people, you'd think.
Yeah, should be solid. And for charging.
It supports 45-watt wired charging.
45 watts is pretty quick.
But just wired, right? No wireless charging here.
Correct. Wired charging only on this one. That's often a way they differentiate mid-range from premium.
Makes sense. Any other little features worth mentioning?
Well, it supports Samsung Wallet, including their new Tap and Pay feature. So easy contactless payments.
Convenient.
And of course, being a Samsung phone, it has the Knox security platform built in.
Right, for protecting your data and all that. Good layer of security. Okay, so where is this phone actually launching, and how much damage will it do to your wallet?
It's launching first in India, which, as BT Beartie pointed out, is just a massive smartphone market. Hugely important.
Absolutely key market. And the price?
For the 8GB RAM 128 GB storage model, it's set at $26,000.
Okay.
And if you want the bigger 256 GB storage option, that's $29,000.
So roughly.
Yeah.
What's that translate to? The articles gave some rough ideas, but currency fluctuates, right?
Yeah. Conversions are always tricky and change daily. Best to check local pricing if it launches elsewhere. But GS Marina did mention EMI options in India starting around $1,556 a month.
Makes it more accessible, potentially.
Yeah.
Launching in India first, competitive pricing.
Yeah.
It makes sense strategically. But this brings us to some feedback from actual users or potential users, right? The comments on GS Marina.
Yeah, and this is where it gets interesting. A lot of people in the comments were pointing out how similar this F56 seems to the A56 and the M56.
Right. The alphabet soup problem, maybe?
Kind of. People are asking, apart from maybe some pre-installed apps or possibly the IP rating for water resistance, what really makes these phones different? It's getting hard to tell them apart.
It does feel like Samsung has a lot of very similar phones in that mid-range space.
Someone in the comments even mentioned that the A56 apparently uses a different chip, the Exynos 1580, not the 1480 like this F56.
Oh, okay. So there are hardware differences, but maybe they're not always obvious or well communicated.
Seems like it. It really highlights the confusion consumers might face trying to navigate Samsung's lineup. Which one is actually the best fit?
Yeah, it's a challenge.
Huh.
And just for context, those GS Marina daily interest rankings show the Galaxy A56 is getting a lot of attention already.
So the F56 is definitely entering a crowded field, even within Samsung's own portfolio.
Which brings back to you, the listener. When you see phones like this, so similar on the surface,
Yeah.
what features actually matter most to you?
Is it that super thin design of the F56 that grabs you, or is it that incredible promise of 6 OS updates?
Yeah, what truly makes a phone compelling for you when the specs start to blur together?
It really does boil down to personal priorities, doesn't it? What do you value most?
So let's just quickly wrap up the key points on the Galaxy F56.
Okay.
We've got that really slim 7.2 millimeter body, a nice 6.7-inch 120Hz OLED display,
Powered by the Exynos 1480 chip with 8 gigs of RAM and that vapor chamber cooling.
a 50MP main camera with OIS, 4K video, plus some of those Galaxy AI features like Object Eraser.
A 5,000 mAh battery with 45W wired charging.
And crucially, that promise of 6 major Android OS updates.
A really strong point.
Which leads us perfectly into our final thought for you today.
As we see more and more phones launching, often feeling quite similar, from Samsung and others, how do you actually decide?
Yeah, how do you weigh those subtle things like a slightly thinner design versus maybe a slightly newer processor versus that long-term software support?
When the spec sheets look almost identical, what pushes you one way or the other? What really defines a great smartphone experience for you beyond just listing the parts inside?
Something to think about next time you're browsing for a new phone.